I was curled up in bed scrolling through anonymous posts on my tablet when one caught my eye. My daughter scored 1506 on her SAT. But she's determined to leave home for an out-of-state university. How can I get her to choose a local school instead? And stay with me forever? The comments tore into the parent for being selfish and controlling. However, the original poster insisted she'd sacrificed everything to raise her daughter alone, and couldn't bear the thought of growing old with no one by her side. Amidst the barrage of criticism, I saw the top-rated reply. High school seniors won't see it coming. Wait until she's asleep, take her phone, use the verification code to reset her application portal password, and change all her college choices 2 minutes before the deadline. Once the admissions results are finalized, fake a medical emergency and end up in the ER. She'll be too guilty to ask for a gap year. Someone who had also just scored high on the exams this year. I was shaking with anger. I was about to leave a furious reply, when I instinctively reached for the phone charging beside my pillow. It was gone. Mom. No answer came from it. I stood frozen in my bedroom doorway, my palms slick with sweat. Then I looked up. A faint blue glow spilled from the end of the hallway. The unmistakable light of a computer monitor. Tap, tap, tap. The keyboard clicked steadily, each keystroke sounding like another nail being hammered into a coffin. When I leaned around the corner, the blood drained from my face. My mother, Whitney Richmond, sat hunched over the computer desk. Cold blue light from the screen cast shifting shadows across her face. She clutched my phone in one hand while the other flew across the keyboard. On the screen was the state university application portal. My name, my exam registration number, and my social security number. Every bit of my personal information was there. Bold red letters stared back at me. Application submitted. First choice, Westbridge Business College. Second choice, North Valley Institute of Information Technology. These were schools I'd never even heard of. Bottom-tier colleges no one with my score would ever consider. My hard-earned score of 1506 had been thrown straight into the trash. Mom, what are you doing? I lunged forward and ripped the mouse out of her hand. She shot to her feet the instant she saw me. Panic flashed across her face. Then just as quickly, she clutched her chest. Her body arched backward. Bang. She hit the floor hard. My heart, Gemma. My heart hurts. She writhed across the floor, eyes rolling back, gasping for air as her arms and legs twitched violently. I froze. Half the fury burning inside me vanished in an instant. What if this wasn't an act? Don't scare me. I dropped beside her. She grabbed my arm with surprising strength, her fingernails digging into my skin. Call 911. Hurry. I'm dying. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped my phone as I dialed. During the 15 minutes it took the ambulance to arrive, my mother continued fighting for her life. I knew beside her, my mind completely blank. The emergency room hallway was cold and painfully bright. I sat in a plastic chair, trembling so hard I couldn't tell whether it was from the cold or from rage. Half an hour later, the doctor stepped out. Are you Miss Whitney Richmond's family? I'm her daughter. Well, it's nothing serious. She had a stress response brought on by emotional distress. ECG is normal. Blood pressure is a little elevated, but she'll be fine after some rest. Dr. Bennett removed his mask. She doesn't even need medication. I stared at him for 3 long seconds, unable to say a word. No heart condition, no angina, no near-death emergency. She'd faked the whole thing. I borrowed a phone from one of the nurses and logged into the university application portal with trembling fingers. A line of red text filled the screen. This application cycle has been locked. No further changes may be made. The deadline had passed 47 minutes earlier. I handed the phone back to the nurse. Thank you. My voice was so flat, it frightened even me. I quietly reached beneath her pillow and retrieved my phone. I opened the anonymous local forum. The original poster had updated the thread an hour earlier. Thanks for the advice. It worked. I faked passing out and got myself admitted to the ER. The little brat is sitting here, crying her eyes out, watching over me. She doesn't dare bring up taking a gap year. As I stared at the words the little brat, I bit down so hard on my lip that I tasted blood. My fingers trembled, the tips having gone ice cold. Those 3 words cut deeper than the poisonous advice itself. The anonymous poster was my mother. The next comment made me feel even sicker. A user named Parker Dad replied, "Congratulations. When she graduates, have her marry my son. I'll pay you $50,000. My mother immediately responded with a thumbs up emoji. My stomach churned. Then someone else asked, keeping her close is one thing, but ruining her future? Is it really worth it? My mother answered that one too. Girls leave once they get married. Anyway, Parker Dad promised that as long as she stays here, she'll marry his son. After graduation, I'll get $50,000 for my retirement, and he'll pull some strings to get my brother a county job. Now that's a real bargain." My grip tightened around my phone as I struggled to breathe. My mother rolled over, mumbled something in her sleep, then started snoring again. And now it wasn't enough to drain my bank account. She intended to sell me too. $50,000. Dawn's light slowly crept through the hospital window. I sat there all night, forcing every ounce of anger back down. My application had already been locked in the portal. Even if I confronted her now, at worst she gets scolded and I gain nothing. Not yet. I opened my phone and hired a same-day courier. At 7 the next morning, my mother woke up. When she saw me still sitting beside her bed, her eyes immediately reddened. She grabbed my hand. "Gemma, you scared me to death last night. You're all I have. If you move away, what if I suddenly die? No one would even know." The tears came instantly streaming down. The wrinkles in her face simply looked at her. She wiped her eyes and choked back another sob. "I know your grades are good, but our local universities are perfectly fine. You'll stay close to home, and I can still take care of you." "Take care of me?" I took a deep breath and forced a few tears into my eyes. "Mom, I'm not leaving. I'll stay here with you." Her tears vanished almost instantly. A smile spread across her face as she patted my hand. "That's my good girl." That afternoon, after she was discharged, I picked up the package the courier had delivered to the ER reception desk. As soon as we got home and she went to take a shower, I opened it. I tucked a miniature camera deep inside the leaves of the potted pothos, angling the lens toward the couch and coffee table. Then I took out 2 digital voice recorders. One went underneath the edge of the coffee table, the other was attached to the side of the TV stand. My mother walked out of the bathroom and glanced at me. Derek's family is coming to stay for a few days tomorrow. Clean out the guest room. Oh, and Mr. Parker is bringing his son over in a couple of days. Dress up a little. Don't look like such a bookworm, okay? I said, satisfied. She nodded and wandered into the kitchen, humming to herself as she started making lunch. Mom, the biggest mistake you've ever made was thinking all I knew how to do was cry. Early the next morning, Uncle Derek showed up at our front door carrying 2 oversized duffel bags. Behind him were Aunt Brenda and my cousin Tyler. I didn't argue. I simply gathered my bedding and carried it out. The first thing Aunt Brenda did, after settling in, was announced that she was helping me organize my room. She started pulling stacks of books off my shelves and stuffing them into garbage bags. Review guides, notebooks, practice tests, everything. These old things are just taking up space. You're not going to college anymore, so what's the point of keeping them? I stepped forward to stop her. Aunt Brenda, those are my things. She looked at me sideways. Your mom already told us you're not going to school. You're getting married. What good are these books now? Tyler needs somewhere to put his gaming console. Tyler was 15 and already pushing 200 pounds. He was rummaging through my closet. He picked up one of my neatly folded bras. Is this one too small for you? Without even looking up, Aunt Brenda said, Tyler, knock it off. That's your cousin's instead. He swung it around in his hand, laughing. I snatched it away from the kitchen. Mom, I shouted. Gemma, stop being so stingy. Tyler's family. To see that everything had been turned upside down. My fist slowly clenched. While Tyler was glued to his video game, I accidentally stepped on the power cord. The screen went black, and he let out an enraged scream. Aunt Brenda stormed into the room, yelling at me for not watching where I was going. Without saying a word, I bent down and plugged it back in. I'd put up with it. At 2 that afternoon, the doorbell rang. Mom rushed to answer it, smiling so hard. Her face looked ready to split. 2 men stood outside. The first was a short, heavy-set man in his 50s, with a balding head, a protruding belly, and thick gold rings covering his fingers. It was Martin Parker, the man behind the anonymous Parker dad account. Standing beside him was a man in his early 20s with bleached blonde hair, tattoos wrapped around his neck, and 3 earrings in his left ear. His son Logan Parker. Last year he'd shoved a 70-year-old woman down a flight of stairs in his apartment complex. His father paid $200,000 to settle the case before it ever reached court. Go pour your future husband a glass of water. The moment Logan saw me, his eyes lit up. He strode over and reached for my waist. Well, damn. My future wife's even prettier than I expected. I sidestepped him so his hand closed on empty air. The grin on his face disappeared. Mom slammed her hand against the table. What are you pulling away for? The Parkers own 3 apartment buildings in town. A girl like you should be grateful they picked you. Standing directly beneath the hidden camera, he repeated the most important detail all over again. Aunt Brenda leaned against the doorway with a mocking smile. So what if you scored a 1560? A girl who marries well is the real winner. Logan wandered over again. This time he reached out and grabbed my chin. Quit playing hard to get. Sooner or later you'll be mine anyway. I slapped his hand away and took a step back. Mom's shrill voice rang through the house. Gemma Richmond, keep this up and I'll drag your name through the mud. The living room fell silent. I lowered my head and stared at my shadow on the floor. Then I looked up and smiled. Okay. Everyone froze, but I continued. If we're getting engaged, shouldn't we do it properly? Mom's expression changed instantly from fury to delight. Martin slapped his thigh and burst out laughing. Now that's what I like to hear. Straight to the point. Mom wrapped an arm around my shoulders. We'll hold your college send-off party and engagement party together next week. Make it the biggest event this town's ever seen. Sounds good. I smiled and nodded. What none of them knew was that from the moment they walked through my front door, my hidden camera had captured every second of it. Meanwhile, I played the part of the obedient daughter. Every day, I sweetly texted Logan. Logan, what did you have for lunch today? Your tattoo looks so cool. I saved screenshots of every single one. I told Mom I wanted to stop by the Parker's house and help clean. I want to make a good impression on my future in-laws. She was so thrilled and even drove me there herself. Mrs. Margaret Parker happened to be out of town visiting relatives. I spent 2 hours mopping floors, wiping down furniture and washing dishes. Just before I left, while Martin and Logan were smoking on the rooftop deck, I slipped a digital voice recorder beneath the living room couch. 3 days later, I returned with an excuse to retrieve it. That night, hidden beneath my blankets with my headphones on, I listened to every second of the recording. Mom's voice came first. At the engagement party, get a few drinks into her, then have Logan lock her in one of the bedrooms. Next morning, I'll bring the relatives in to catch them together. Martin chuckled. And then my mother. Once her reputation's ruined, she'll have no choice but to marry him. After the marriage license is signed, transfer the $50,000 straight into Derek's account. Oh, and about that financial aid. When the time comes, go talk to old Bill in the admissions office. When I took off my headphones, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from excitement. I turned on my computer and compressed the audio, recording, surveillance footage, forum screenshots, and chat logs into a single file. Then I drafted an email and sent it to the state's organized crime tip line. A second email went to the State Department of Education's Office of Inspector General. After hitting send, I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. I smiled for a very long time. There was one thing my mother would never know. Day after my SAT scores were released, I'd already passed the honors admissions program interview at Northwood State University, the state's flagship university. I'd signed the enrollment agreement, and my student record had already been transferred. My place was secure. Whatever was entered into the regular application portal would never be processed. The applications she'd worked so hard to change had been nothing more than an empty shell. I'd left them there as bait on purpose. The combined college send-off and engagement party was scheduled for Saturday. Mom booked 18 tables at the nicest venue in town, the Grand Oak. On Saturday morning, she called me while wearing her new red dress. You ungrateful brat. Everyone's already here, and you're still dragging your feet. Get over here right now. If you embarrass me today, I'll break your legs. Standing in front of the mirror, I straightened my collar. In my hand was the flash drive containing every piece of evidence. I'm on my way, Mom. I ended the call and looked at my reflection. Mom, you only have a few more minutes before everything falls apart. I arrived at the Grand Oak 20 minutes later. The ballroom was packed. 18 tables had been decorated with white roses and gold ribbons. A giant banner hung above the stage. Congratulations, Gemma and Logan. Underneath it, in smaller letters, College Send-Off and Engagement Celebration. I almost laughed. My mother had managed to turn the destruction of my future into a party. She spotted me immediately. There she is. Whitney hurried toward me, beaming. Why were you so late? Your future husband has been waiting. Logan was standing beside Martin in an expensive suit. The moment he saw me, his eyes traveled over me possessively. There's my girl. I stepped away before he could touch me. Don't call me that. His smile stiffened. My mother grabbed my arm. Gemma. I gently removed her hand. I'm here, aren't I? She stared at me suspiciously. Something about my expression must have bothered her. Then Martin raised his champagne glass. Come on. Today is supposed to be happy. Everyone applauded. I looked around the room. My relatives. My mother's friends. The Parkers. A few local businessmen. And sitting near the front, the elderly man my mother had mentioned in the recording. Old Bill. The admissions officer. My smile widened. Perfect. I walked onto the stage. The microphone was already waiting. My mother followed me. Tell everyone how excited you are, she whispered. I took the microphone. Actually, I have something I'd like to say. Mom's smile froze. Gemma. I looked directly at the crowd. Thank you all for coming to celebrate my future. Applause broke out. I waited until it died down. But I think everyone deserves to know exactly what that future is. I clicked the remote in my hand. The giant screen behind me came alive. The first image was a screenshot of the anonymous forum. My daughter scored 1560. How can I keep her from leaving home? The room went silent. My mother's face went white. The next screenshot appeared. Wait until she's asleep. Reset her application password. Change her choices before the deadline. Someone gasped. Then came my mother's reply. Thanks for the advice. It worked. My mother lunged toward me. Turn that off. I stepped backward. No. The next image appeared. Girls leave once they get married. Parker dad promised $50,000. Martin's champagne glass slipped from his hand. It shattered on the floor. What the hell is this? Someone whispered. My mother grabbed the microphone. She's lying. My daughter has always been unstable. She'll do anything for attention. I calmly held up my phone. Then let's listen instead. The speakers crackled. My mother's recorded voice filled the ballroom. At the engagement party, get a few drinks into her, then have Logan lock her in one of the bedrooms. Silence. Nobody moved. Then Martin's voice followed. After the marriage license is signed, transfer the $50,000 straight into Derek's account. My Aunt Brenda slowly turned toward Uncle Derek. Derek. He immediately started sweating. That isn't what you think. The recording continued. And about that financial aid, go talk to Old Bill in the admissions office. Every head in the room turned toward the elderly man sitting near the front. Old Bill looked horrified. I don't know these people. I nodded. I know. I clicked again. An email appeared on the screen. State Education Inspector General, evidence submission confirmation. Then another. Organized crime tip submission, received. My mother stared at the screen. You reported us? Yes. Her face twisted. You little. She charged toward me. I stepped aside. She stumbled past me and crashed into the cake table. The enormous engagement cake toppled over. Logan grabbed my wrist. You think you're getting away from me? I looked down at his hand. Then at him. Let go. He tightened his grip. I smiled. You really haven't learned anything. I raised my phone. Police are already here. The ballroom doors opened. Several officers entered. Behind them were investigators from the State Education Department. Martin immediately backed away. Officer, this is a misunderstanding. One investigator held up a warrant. Martin Parker? Martin stopped. You're being investigated for fraud, attempted coercion, and interference with an admissions process. My mother's face collapsed. Wait. I didn't do anything. An officer approached her. Whitney Richmond? She started crying. I'm her mother. I looked at her. Yes. She turned toward me desperately. Gemma, please. For the first time all day, I didn't feel guilty. You should have thought about that before you tried to sell me. The officers escorted her away. Logan was next. He started shouting that I belonged to him. I simply watched. When the ballroom doors finally closed behind them, everyone stood frozen. Then my phone buzzed. An email. I opened it. Northwood State University, final enrollment confirmation. I walked to the microphone one last time. My college future wasn't destroyed. I projected the email onto the screen. I was accepted into Northwood State's honors program weeks ago. The room erupted. My mother had spent days celebrating my supposed downfall. Meanwhile, I'd already secured the future she tried to steal. I looked at the banner above me. Congratulations, Gemma and Logan. I pointed toward it. Someone should probably take that down. A few people laughed nervously. I smiled. Actually, leave it. Everyone looked confused. I think it's funny. I walked off the stage. Behind me, the engagement party dissolved into chaos. By Monday morning, the Parker family's businesses were being investigated. By Tuesday, my mother's anonymous account had been identified. By Wednesday, the school district had opened an investigation into the admissions interference. And by Friday, Uncle Derek's supposed county job connection had vanished completely. As for me, I packed my bags. Not secretly. Not apologetically. I walked straight past my mother when she tried to stop me. Gemma, you're really leaving? I turned around. You spent months trying to make sure I couldn't. I lifted my suitcase. So why are you surprised that you failed? Then I walked out. Northwood State was waiting. And for the first time in my life, my future belonged entirely to me. Epilogue. 10 years later, Gemma graduated from Northwood State with honors. She went on to build a successful career in finance, eventually becoming the youngest partner at her firm. She bought her own apartment in another state, traveled whenever she wanted, and surrounded herself with friends who respected her. She never looked back. Whitney's life went in the opposite direction. After the investigation, the Parker family wanted nothing to do with her. Derek blamed her for ruining his chances of getting the county job. Brenda stopped answering her calls. Even her extended family gradually disappeared. The house became painfully quiet. At first, Whitney told herself Gemma would come back. Then she told herself Gemma would call. Then she stopped making excuses. Years passed. One winter evening, Whitney sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at an old photograph. Gemma was 17 in it, smiling proudly while holding her SAT results. Whitney remembered that day. She remembered Gemma running into the kitchen, shouting that she'd scored a 1560. Whitney had been proud. Then she'd become afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of getting old. Afraid that her daughter would build a life without her. So she tried to make sure Gemma had nowhere else to go. And in doing so, she destroyed the only relationship she had. Her phone sat beside her. She opened her contacts. Gemma. Her finger hovered over the name. She wanted to call. But what could she possibly say? I'm sorry I tried to steal your future. I'm sorry I tried to sell you into a marriage. I'm sorry I treated you like property instead of my daughter. Whitney put the phone down. That night, she ate dinner alone. The next morning, she woke up alone. And every birthday, every holiday, every quiet Sunday afterward was the same. She had once been terrified that Gemma would leave, and she'd grow old with no one beside her. Ironically, her fear had created exactly the future she dreaded. One evening, Whitney stood by the window and whispered, Gemma, I really did love you. Her voice cracked. I just loved having you more than I loved letting you be free. Across the country, Gemma was sitting in her apartment, laughing with friends over dinner. Her phone remained silent. She had forgiven herself. But she had never forgotten. And she never went back. Whitney spent her final years surrounded by the four walls she'd fought so desperately to keep her daughter inside. When she died, there was no daughter holding her hand. No family gathered around her bed. Only an empty house. And a photograph of the girl she'd once tried so hard to keep. The daughter she had wanted beside her forever had built a life so far beyond her reach that Whitney couldn't touch it anymore. And that was the one consequence she could never undo.